Yeah, you get a little bit of their personalities, the different teachers through their questioning, and you get the great stuff with Kelvin with his obsession with the ever burning lamp.
Oh,
and I don't have. You also get what's his name, Master Lorren, bringing up the downfall of the Aturan Empire, which is where I brought up like Lord Nalto, where that's where Nalt came from. They bring that up in this chapter, and I do think that there's something more to Master Lorren more than the rest of them. I think Master Lorren could possibly be a member of the Amyr. That he's pruning the library of the books of the Amyr and the Chandrian. Like, Kvothe can't find anything there. So I think if the Amyr, if you're going to put a position in, someone in a position of power, the guy running the library would be premium place. Take out all mentions, keep your name hidden. We got the mysterious guy that's going around collecting books for him that Kvothe meets.
Hey, can I stop you real quick, Dan?
Yeah, go ahead.
Along those lines, after the interview, Lorren immediately goes up to Kvothe and says, "Hey, did you say your dad's name is Arliden?" And then he says, "Arliden the Bard." Like he knows something that Kvothe doesn't know, or he knows something about Kvothe's dad already.
Yeah. Yes, I got a little nugget for you guys on that one, but the other just to finish my point though, another thing about Lorren that leads me to believe he might be part of the Amyr beyond the pruning. He's got guys out collecting books for him that might be pruning other libraries around the world. When Kvothe is reading the Duke of Gibeah's book, the guy that they learned much of the medical knowledge that they have in this world is from the Duke of Gibeah. They got one of his original copies in this library. Kvothe is reading it, and then he sees on the outer edges of the pages is the motto of the Amyr, like for the greater good. And it's written in Tema or Temic or one of those languages. And this is when Kvothe was shouting down these guys that kept talking loud in the library. And Master Lorren comes in and he steps in and seemingly he's going in there and kick him out for talking loud. But he also takes that fucking book away from him when Kvothe is like going through his theory with Sem that I think the Amyr still exist. I think this proves it. I think they're in hiding. Then Master Lorren shows up, takes that fucking book from him immediately. So I think there's a case to be made that Master Lorren is
Amyr.
Amyr, yes.
Huh,
yeah, that's really interesting. I definitely hadn't made that connection. That seems plausible.
Now to go with what Fitz was saying, I have a couple more things on the chapter to mention, but to wrap up Lorren's part, he reacts to the knowledge that Arliden is Kvothe's father. Well, Rothfuss has, this is not something you would read about. This is just something Rothfuss has said that I've come across. So someone asked him, how does Lorren know about Arliden? And Rothfuss answered, he said, Arliden had a productive career as a songwriter, not to mention that he had a fairly high-profile gig as the lead trooper in Greyfowl's Men. As such, he wrote a lot of songs, many of which were recorded and attributed to him, but there are a lot of songs in the archives that have been collected and aren't attributed to anyone. Lorren was going to ask Kvothe for his assistance cataloging these before Kvothe had his hissy fit at the end of chapter 36. There, that's a little secret nobody knew before. See, I'm not a total a-hole about keeping things to myself.
Huh.
So we find out why he was approaching Kvothe about Arliden was because he wanted him to try to catalog some songs that are not attributed to anybody. He was going to try to fucking pin out who sang them.
So what do they use 8-track? This one?
Yes. Yeah, 8-track and floppy disk for some reason.
Okay.
Floppy disk?
Yeah.
You couldn't get any music on a floppy disk.
They do it. Some magic, man. It's magical.
Oh, it's sympathy. Floppy disk, sympathy,
Yeah.
floppy disks.
It's Sigildry.
Hey,
Yeah, like the first thing I always take note of is Lorren. Like his obvious, they have a lot of discussion about Lorren being completely expressionless, and his emotions are a complete mask. Like there's moments when he gets super angry over very specific things, but outside of that, he's very, very difficult to read. And so you get that in the beginning of this chapter with the Lorren glanced at the receipt before tucking it into a pocket and looked at me intently. No, not intently, not quizzically. There was no expression on his face at all. No curiosity, no irritation, nothing. Lorren's always interesting to me. One, I like I said in the last episode, I think he very likely could be a member of the Amyr, but when I read about him, I'm always curious if he's got a hand trying to guide Kvothe a little bit in their interactions or not. If he's part of the Amyr and doesn't really think anything of Kvothe, or that he's part of the Amyr and he has some kind of inclination about Kvothe and what Kvothe's about and his power, maybe the meeting with the Chandri and that kind of stuff, and he's kind of trying to guide him along.
well, that and he seems to know who Kvothe's dad is, Arliden.
Yeah, and we talked about that too, though. He knows Kvothe's dad. Rothfuss has said, and he doesn't say it in the book, but Rothfuss has said it in another setting where he was talking about that Lorren knows Kvothe's dad because Kvothe's dad's got a decent amount of acclaim in the world for his musical ability and his writing, and he's written a number of songs, and so that's largely where he knows Kvothe's dad, as far as what we know specifically from Rothfuss. It could be that he also knows, more. He knows some of their story, some of the shit that's going on with them, some of the things that have happened to him with the Chandri and that kind of stuff. But he definitely knows him through his music.
I was gonna say, I mean, Lorren does at some point. Yeah, he gives him good advice. It's coming a little bit later, maybe next chapter, but he even gives him Kvothe advice to the effect of, kind of be wary. You already look young. Be wary of, what impression you're giving others with the types of books you're asking for and things like that. And again, it comes up a little bit later, but I like that about him. I like that he does seem to be, and the way he does it is very diplomatic. He's like, look, I'm not telling you what you should be looking at and what you shouldn't be looking at. I appreciate a curious mind. However, you want to be careful of what impression you're giving others when you're new here. You already look young. And if you're asking for fairy stories, people are going to start thinking you're, a child, or you're just immature, basically.
Yeah.
So I like that about him. I did also see or notice Simon. He kind of addresses how Lorren, how he seems chilly, distant. It's like, yeah, that's like an understatement. But then he goes on to say that he's always like that. And rumor has it that Elxadal has a standing offer of 10 gold marks to anyone who can make him laugh. Which, can you imagine that? Like, knowing some dude that you've known him for years, never laughed.
Yeah, just personally, I'd walk up to him and tickle him or something, and just fucking for 10 gold marks. I'm gonna fucking go for broke.
Whatever it takes.
I'd be constantly I'd be court jester around that dude, dropping deadpan humor. I'd do it all, trying to.
I was gonna say it'd be funny to
figure out what his button is.
What it ends up being the only thing that makes him laugh is Chris Farley type spastic physical comedy. Yeah. That's the only thing.
He laughs when people fall down in front of him. Thinks that shit's hilarious.
When they burn their face
He's got,
or something.
That fucking Nelson from the Simpsons type of humor. You hurt yourself. One of the other aspects, though, that the most important aspect of this chapter to me is when after he asked about the Chandria, and then he asked about the Amyr, and instead of a kid bringing books on the Amyr, it's Lorren steps up.
Yeah.
And he brings him down into his office and sits him down. This is one of these clues that I think give a lot of credence to the inclination that Lorren is part of the Amyr. And he's like, I have a great respect for curiosity, Lorren said with no particular inflection. Perhaps I can satisfy yours a bit. The Amyr were part of the church back when the Aeturan Empire was still strong. Their credo was Viari enim uge, which roughly translates as for the greater good. They were equal part knight-errant and vigilante. They had judiciary powers and could act as judges in both the religious and secular courts. All of them, to varying degrees, were exempt from the law. So that gives us a good amount of information about who the human Amyr were. But then when he gives him that information, is basically like, there, does that satisfy you? Move on. And then he asks a few more questions. He's like, look, you're young. Many will judge you by that fact alone. I drew a breath, but he held up a hand. I'm not accusing you of engaging in boyish fancy. I'm advising you to avoid the appearance of boyish fancy. He gave me a level look, his face as calm as always. So you could take that as Lorren's just looking out for him. It's like, hey man, if you're looking in a Chandria and Amyr, people are going to think you're a fucking little kid and you're foolish. And you could take it that way. But why does Lorren give a fuck about one student among many? Like, why does he care? And he scratches it out of the books. The fact he goes to that length, marking that shit out of the books. I don't think that's what he was doing. I think it was more he tries to keep that shit out of the library, because Kvothe, in all the years that he, all the times he looks through by himself, he can't find hardly a piece on the Amyr or the Chandria. And even through his searches by himself, it seems like that library has been picked clean.
Yeah, well, they piece it out, and it doesn't make sense. And then when they find stories, it's like, wait, it's extraordinarily suspicious that they're not able to find stories that connect, right? And because of how prevalent the Amyr were, there should be record. It doesn't make sense that there wouldn't be record. So the suspicion builds further and further. I think that's the right way to read this. I think Lorren. Well, so that kind of connects to what I was saying earlier that I thought was interesting. When for a moment I thought about telling him the truth about what happened to my parents, about the story I had heard in Tarbeen. So if he does that, are we to believe Lorren now looks at him as a complete enemy, or can he take him under his wing? Like, what's the likely logical conclusion there?
Well, I think, like, if you're part of the Amyr and this kid's like, the Chandrian killed my family, you wouldn't think of him as an enemy.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're going to be like, hey, come join our secret society.
Yeah.
But, like, it's hard to tell because, like, there's that aspect that feels like the angels are guiding Kvothe, maybe the Amyr are guiding Kvothe, and it seems like these two are working in tandem, so maybe Lorren would also be guiding him, or maybe different parts, like Caudicus also seems like the Amyr, but he doesn't seem like he knows Kvothe, so it seems like there's these aspects where, like, just because someone's Amyr doesn't mean they know Kvothe and they're guiding him. Maybe some part of the Amyr do know Kvothe and are guiding him, other parts don't. Maybe they all have different purposes. They're not, they're not working together like that tightly where they know everything. Everybody knows everything about everything. Like, so it could just be like Lorren's mission is shut down any
talk at all.
Person seeking knowledge on these things. Take these books out. Maybe he has no guiding hand over Kvothe, or maybe he does. It's impossible to know without further information. But I do think that the information that we've seen so far definitely provides a lot of evidence that he could be a member of the Amyr.
So it leads me to believe that I hadn't thought about Lorren being a part of the Amyr, but I think that the Amyr at least know of Kvothe, and it's obvious that they don't want to be known. So any of the characters that we think so far might be part of the Amyr never spell that out to Kvothe, and never even make themselves known as an actual ally, other than they commit a few actions that would signify that they're allies. But they don't. But none of them spell it out for him. And if he were to say, "Hey, my parents were killed by the Chandrian," I don't think anybody who was part of the Amyr, I don't think they would have been surprised. Lorren, now that you say it, Lorren definitely does seem like he's part of the Amyr. I've thought that any of the people who I think are Amyr won't tell Kvothe, because also part of their, not just their mystique, but part of their protection, I think, is being quiet about what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I don't think they would just come out and say, "Yep, you got me." I think they would deny it. But then I think like there's like Skarpi, he's the one that seems the most obvious, like he's there for Kvothe. It's not just that he's Amyr and he happens to be where Kvothe is. It seems like he's clearly there for Kvothe. But we also have talked about Skarpi could have been the guy from the story that Kvothe tells Will and Sim, Skiop. It could be that guy. Could also be the Tinker and Hespa's story. So it seems like Skarpi might not be a human Amyr. It seems like Skarpi might be a Ruach Amyr. So it could be different with him. Whereas Lorren seems like a human. And Kvothe seems like a human. So it seems like that there might be a lot of working parts here. Where you could be a part of the Amyr and not have full knowledge that like Kvothe plays an important role, whereas Skarpi is more than just human, and he understands the bigger picture, and he understands the role that Kvothe plays. Maybe Skarpi is just guiding him into people like Lorren or Kvothe. There's people guiding him to these guys, but these guys don't know what role they're playing in this important figure's life.
It seems to me that they should get their shit together. Maybe like an inter-office email and just like, "Look, dude, here's our plan."
Group chat.
Yeah.
They need a group chat.
Man.
Yeah. Do you think Lorren's just not reading the memos? Like, "Hey, Kvothe's coming to the school. Heads up."
He's too busy.
who's
with all
this
these
kid?
So
books.
tired of reading. He's so tired of reading. I read so much.
He runs a library. He's like, "Yeah, I never check my emails. Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Never check my emails."
Write me a letter.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, and there's a line that I thought was really interesting from Kvothe here, where he's, at best, Lorren would think I was delusional, at worst, a foolish child. I was suddenly pointedly aware of the fact that I was standing in one of the cornerstones of civilization, talking to the master archivist of the university. It put things in a new perspective for me. The stories of an old man and some dockside tavern suddenly seemed very far away and insignificant. So it's like, it's clearly like checking his memory to the degree of checking it like it's almost like foolish wonder, like almost like it didn't happen. Like he's denying the existence of what he knows, right? Or what he thinks he knows.
Yeah, it goes right along with what he's always doing, is questioning himself and his feelings. And as far as we know, it's kind of what he should be doing. We have no idea about what's right and what's wrong in this world, what actually is and what isn't, and neither does he. We're in the same boat as Kvothe.
Yeah, which is, again, an interesting place to put the reader,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the story. I think it's okay.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
It's
I think he did an all right job. It's a good yarn.
It's a good yarn.
Yeah.
You're right. It is a yarn.
Like I wouldn't spend a lot of time like digging into it, but it's good to kind of just like gloss through. This is one of the parts that I think lends a lot of credence to Master Lorren being Amyr. when he talks to Willem, and Willem's like, "Hey, he's meeting with someone in the back. You're gonna have to wait." And then it's a tall, lean Sealdish man opened the door behind the entry desk. Unlike most Sealdish men, he was clean shaven and wore his hair long, pulled back into a tail. He wore well mended hunter's leathers, a faded traveling cloak, and he wore a cloak and high boots, all dusty from the road. As he shut the door behind him, his hands went unconsciously to the hilt of his sword to keep it from striking the wall or desk. So you got this nerd who wears cloaks.
And Kvothe immediately is like, "Who's that guy with the cloak on?
Yeah.
I like that.
That guy seems fucking super cool."
He
He's
did actually seem pretty cool. He seemed like a very interesting Viari. Is that his name? Viari?
They say it.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I think this guy's got to be in book 3.
Yeah, Viari. Yeah.
Unless his only utility is to suggest there's more to Lorren. You know what I mean? Because what else is this accomplishing?
What I think it suggests is that they are going out and they are pruning libraries from around the world. Like this guy's going out. He's armed. He seems like he's an arcanist. He's got his giller, or he is a giller. He's got his gilder, and so he's going out around the world carrying a sword, and he's a librarian.
He speaks like 4 or 5 languages.
He's like Indiana Jones librarian.
Yeah.
Seems to lend some credence to that. They're not just like going out in the world. Hey, do you got a book? They're fucking pruning libraries of the books that they don't want out there.
Maybe he's like he's a library detective. You know, when people don't return the books, they have a late fee. He's gonna collect.
Yeah. He's like the librarian, sheriff, and Seinfeld.
Yeah, he's
Officer Bookman.
Officer Bookman. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty funny idea for a show. Like some dude that takes that job extraordinarily seriously. It's not bad. But yeah, it was interesting that he saw the red hair and thought that Kvothe was Illish. So apparently, a lot of the Illish have red hair.
Yeah, terrible country. Obviously,
that's the suggestion here.
Yeah, it's a garbage country. It's a shit.
But so other than this character, do we meet anybody else who's a Dimaru?
I don't think so.
Wait. Did you get that he's a Dimaru?
Yeah, he is a Dimaru. He says,
I didn't get that. I just
no, not the Sealdish man. The Sealdish man realizes that Kvothe is a Dimaru.
Yeah, he just
and
says.
Tim's asking if there was anybody else that was a Dimaru.
Well, he did say one family, and I thought the suggestion was that.
Oh no, he's not a Dimaru. He's Sealdish. He's just one family is just their like hello. Except for it's like he knows their customs is what that's hinting at. Not that he's one of them.
But then he also does say folk from the family are a rare thing. Yeah, I guess that doesn't mean he's a Dimaru.
No, he's not. He's Sealdish.
Well, and then he's like immediately taken to Kvothe. You know what I mean? Like because he seems to be well-traveled, and he seems to have respect for the Rue, so he's different already in that regard. And so he's probably had interactions with the Rue where they've shown hospitality. He understands they're not fucking the garbage people that everybody says they are, and so he seems to have a better understanding of the world than your typical sheltered noble dickhead who thinks that they're, all the Rue are garbage people and they steal and rape and murder. He seems that he has some respect for them. Yeah, and I say that because he does go as far as saying I'd stop and share news, but I've got to make it to Eve's Down, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll catch you up when I'm back in these parts. Which, I mean, it seems a little bit... So yeah, it would have to be that he respects the Rue to a great degree because he just met this dude. He's got, he's not beholden to him in any way.
I wonder immediately, the Illish, if they have red hair, that's one thing you can tell physically. He knows that he's part of the Rue, which, to my understanding, is you can be from a lot of different places. So how does he know? How does he know he's from the Rue? Just from the one thing he said, "I beg your pardon"?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't give any clue on why he was able to pinpoint that he's
Perhaps
from the Rue.
that it kind of does suggest that maybe this guy has another knack of sorts, right?
Yeah,
Some sort of
be.
like he can intuitively, or he can intuit who people are, where they come from, maybe their history to a degree. Maybe an interesting thing to suggest for a character. It would definitely be well served for him in the role that he plays, or at least that's suggested.
But the fact that Master Lorren has got a guy like that under his wing going out and collecting books for him, I think lends a lot of credence to him being part of the Amyr. That he's trying to prune libraries around the world and keep information from people.
Well, I think it's interesting that, I wonder why you think that they're trying to keep information from people.
Why else would you be pruning the libraries if you're not trying to prevent people from accessing information you don't want them to access?
To make your own library more substantial.
Yeah, but, you could just copy books and do that. Like, they're actively preventing, like, if there's all these libraries around the world, like a guy like Mayor Alvaron, who's got all that money, all that power, all that prestige, he can't find information on the Amyr in his libraries. It's not just that they want copies of all the greatest books. They don't want anyone else to have those books.
Yeah.
So they're not just collecting books, they are pruning other libraries so nobody else has those books.
Yeah, it's an important part where they go through it. The Kvothe and his crew go through it painstakingly in the archives and come to realization that clearly they're trying to keep this information out of the archives. And then we find that out with Mayor Alvaron, because in his youth he used, basically that was his quest until he decided he was going to do something else with his life. I don't remember when exactly that was, but he explains, like,
his dad died and he became king.
Oh yeah,
or not king, but basically king.
He basically
ruler of that area.
It was interesting because he resolved himself to like what Kvothe's doing at that point to a degree in searching out the truth about the Chandrian. Mayor Alvaron decided, that's child's, like, that's not. I have bigger fish to fry in my life.
Yeah, he's like, I gotta grow up and I gotta rule. And then he was like, but if you found the same thing, half a world away, then, this is something we should probably look into.
That was an exciting twist for us as readers, because it was like, oh shit, so Kvothe, he's going to have someone fuel him that has all the access. It's going to be great. And then that doesn't happen, but because shit falls apart.
But the Kvothe also said, stick by the mayor and he'll lead you to their door, the Amyr's door.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be some aspect of the mayor and Kvothe again meeting up where it's going to lead him to the Amyr. But yeah, I think. And also the puppet, when they go see Puppet, he brings up. They ask him about the books that they're researching. They're like, "Why would this guy have said XYZ?" And he's like, "Yeah, he wouldn't. He wouldn't have said that." And so that was also given a hint that the records are being manipulated and there's lies, because they had the same book saying two different things.
Yeah.
And so he was like, he's like, why would the same book say two? And he's like, they wouldn't. And so it was hinting at that people are hiding the truth. They're distorting information in this world. And it seems to be a battle between the Chandrian and the Amyr, seem to be at cross purposes, and they're trying to hide certain information and push certain information. It seems to be a propaganda war between the Amyr and the Chandrian, while both are also trying to remain secret and behind the scenes and unknown what they're doing.
Yeah, interesting.
And everybody else is caught in the middle, and the truth is held, at bay, I guess. Yeah, interesting.
True to life. True to life, I think.
And then when he does get in to speak to Master Lorren, he comes in and he gives him the money to get the copy of Rhetoric and Logic back, pays him. And then what I like about it is he asked Lorren, how do I get back in here? And Lorren was like, look, you fucking brought an open flame into my library, and gave him a dirty look. And he's like, all my carefully planned persuasion flew out the window. And he was struck. He struck silent, not silent, but struggled to give the persuasive argument that he was planning on. And there's a lot of people that take that to mean that Lorren is our boy, the great and almighty, powerful Grey Delcinti. I don't think that's the case, but there is a lot of people that think the reason that people get tongue-tied around Lorren and under his stare is that it's that his power of driving men mad. I don't think there's good enough evidence. I think they're reaching really hard to come to that conclusion, but I'm bringing it up because there are people that make that argument.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah, it seems like that would be stretching given what the interactions that we have with him. It would be a good tool, again, for someone in that space that's serving his purpose if he's also of the Amyr.
Well, in that case, he'd be of the Chandrian.
Oh, yeah.
But their arguments for it are that he doesn't speak a lot. He's not emotional. He's very quiet, very sparse with his words. People are very uncomfortable when he's around and he's speaking. But that's as much as you're gonna get. And like, Kvothe can't fucking make persuasive arguments when he's around him. He's always wilt under his glare. So that's their argument for why he would be the great and almighty, powerful Grey Delcinti. But I don't think that's the case. There's much better argument that he's the Amyr than a Chandrian.
Yeah, no, I think that's a giant leap that's not there. Something that's not there at all. But what I know,
no,
I can appreciate a little. I can appreciate a little bit the connections there, but yeah, I think it's. I think it'd be more.
Well, that's because you're an idiot.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's more interesting
idiot,
that he's part of the
person.
Amyr than the Chandrian, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, the Amyr part does strike me. I hadn't thought about that, but then again, I hadn't thought about how they are keeping changing books and stuff since I read it the first time for a long time.
Yeah, I brought it up before. You should pay attention, to the podcast.
I don't be listening to you.
But yeah, then so I also like too that Lorren kind of fucking sets him up when Kvothe's like, I would do this and that and this and this and this and that to get back in the library. He's like, all that?
Yeah, he kind of
And
baits
he's
him.
like, and more. And he's like, all right, well, I asked one thing. He's like, anything. Demonstrate the patience and prudence which you have heretofore been lacking. He's like, good morning.
Yeah.
And
Peace.
it's just builds his hope up, and it's like, yeah, mature. That's what I asked for.
It's pretty great too that right after that happens, there's Jameson picking him up to send him on the horns. It's like, shit, man. Fucking great timing, Kvothe.
Yeah, it's a great. Rothfuss did a real good job there of cutting from that scene of stop acting like a little child to he gets brought up on the horns for writing jackass.
Like it's.
Hey,
immediate.
did you guys before we move on to that part today? Did you guys notice that it was he only needed to pay 2 silver pennies instead of the 2 silver jots? And
No, it's 2 silver pennies instead of 2 silver talents.
Yeah. Okay. So, but anyway, I when I read it, I just kind of brought me back to that scene where he's swindling that pawn shop owner, and thinking when Lorren goes and gets that book, that guy was probably like, man, what the fuck? Like, because he's got the the receipt right there, Yeah.
Yeah. He tried, but it's his fault. He shouldn't have tried to screw Kvothe.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I'm glad you pointed that out because I did actually forget that part. But yeah, that's cool. Well, and then also you got
the DD.
Well, but then also you got Lorren coming in with this receipt. Pretty intimidating figure coming in to get that.
Yeah, that's my mind went to that pawn shop and Master Lorren going in and being like, showing the guy the receipt and the guy freaking out, but whatever.
One of the things I think is kind of interesting is he's like, but other parts of the archives were quite the opposite of busy. The acquisitions office, for example, was tiny and perpetually dark. Through the window, I could see that one entire wall of the office was nothing but a huge map with cities and roads marked in such detail that it looked like a snarled loom. The map was covered in a layer of clear alchemical lacquer, and there were notes written at various points in red grease pencil detailing rumors of desirable books and the last known position of the various acquisition teams. It sure seems like they're hunting, not just like hunting down books for knowledge. It sure seems like that they are on a mission to remove books from, because otherwise, if they have this detailed map of the world and where all these books are, where's all the fucking information we want to know? Like, they're clearly on a mission to get books that they don't have. Surely they would have came across something important in that time. If they don't have it at the library, it's got to be because they're hiding it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they're clearly trying to locate, and the fact that Kvothe can't find information about the Chandrian and can't find information about the Amyr does hint at it's not just that they're trying to locate to remove information. I just wonder, man, if we're gonna walk into a library at some point that is just filled with all this information.
Yeah,
there's a room somewhere just filled with books about the Chandrian and the Amyr.
They find Iax's diary, and it's super detailed. Yeah, he's it's very, very depressing tale of his failed love life. He's basically Sim, and we see how like a happy-go-lucky kid goes dark because he keeps getting turned down.
Oh man.
It's all just a story that looms out of a dude being turned down by women.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all just pegged on. It's pegged on that. And how bad the world can go.
He becomes a shaper and tries to shape. That's where, Florian's like the sex god of the world. He's like, I'm going to create a world with a sex god that's all about fucking sex and super sex.
Day 9,723. Once again on the road, trying to find a love of my life. What's Lanray's wife's name?
Lyra.
Ever since Lyra's left me, I've had no confidence. It's a vicious cycle. I've had no confidence. I can't get another girl because she sees that I have no confidence. And anyway.
Yeah, it just feeds hilarious on itself. He just goes on this downward spiral that can just constantly goes. I love the idea that he takes the route of, what was it, Weird Science?
Yeah.
Is that the movie I'm thinking of? Yeah. He creates the girl.
Iax goes and the Weird Science creates the Fae with a fucking sexy sex town.
But he created a little, he created Florian, who has her own agenda.
When you think,
so she's
when you look at like
from
Florian,
all over the place to ruin their lives.
You look at Florian, that's like 15-year-old boy dream shit.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, man. That's a that's a that's a really funny.
If
premise.
you were shaping, what were you shape? What do you mean 15-year-old
Yeah.
boy? If I was a shaper, you know, she's got all these different tricks, all these different sexual moves, you know, different things that he likes. He's experimenting. He's like, I wonder if I could think of a girl to do.
In the movie, like, she's got, like, fucking 12 boobs. Just 12 boobs, this giant ass. And it's like, man, this looks like a 15-year-old boy created this. And I was 15. You got a problem?
It is. It is also interesting to figure how you show, you know, all the different sexual moves she has. Like, you're going to show every one, or you're just going to imply that in this next one, you're going to have a hand coming up from here and a hand coming up from down here, and then, you know, legs flying around.
One of Florian's hands is a sock.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this really carries where the last couple episodes have been moving, which is we've been teasing that back and forth, this idea of the greater good and the complexity that it brings to the world with the Amyr versus the Chandrian, and how they overlap in terms of their purposes, and how the gray area comes in with the judgment of the greater good, that, you know, that dirty stinking omelet that you make, you know, by breaking those eggs, right?
Yeah. And because of the saying, the Viari enum uge, that is what Lorren says to him, is the creed of the Amyr. When he first gets to university and he's having them look up books for him on the Amyr, and then Lorren's like, you know, hey, you're going to look like a little kid looking this stuff up. And he's like, but I can satisfy your curiosity. And then he tells him that in Viari enum uge was their saying. So the fact that it's on the outside scroll of that Gibeah book, you would think that that's something that Lorren would, you know, recognize, that would stand out to him as well.
That whole exchange seems a lot more suspicious now.
Yeah.
To me. I mean, yeah, and it was back then, and you pointed that out, but yeah, especially knowing what we know now, yeah, he had a real purpose there. It wasn't just, you know, you're going to look a little foolish because you already are young. And he had really good tact, Lorren, when he approached the way he approached Kvothe and the way he approached the subject. But that again makes it even more suspicious because of the underlying motivational factors that he had, right?
Yeah, and he's just so Johnny on the spot. Like, I mean, and you know, like none of the scribs were telling those kids to quiet down, but they went and got Lorren to tattle on Kvothe. Like, I mean, why does he know? I mean, if they went to tattle on Kvothe, why didn't they go and say something to those kids? And then why, you know, does Lorren really need to, you know, have, you know, go grab Kvothe himself and then get that book from him? There's enough there. Like, I mean, it could just be as simple as that. It could be that Lorren just was going to tell Kvothe to get out of there. It's just happenstance, you know, that, you know, it's that book's important and it's got a saying in there that he would recognize as the Amyr. And there's reasons to suspect that he's the Amyr, but it could just be coincidences too. It's just, I doubt it. I think that the fact, you know, all the other evidence, I think it points at that this is likely him trying to squash information.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it follows that same suspicion because, it's a good point. There's scribs in there that this is their responsibility. It's not Lorren's responsibility to get involved. I mean,
yeah, I mean, when he was like, you know, when he was lighting the candle in the archives, they didn't just like come and, you know, wait here, we'll go get Lorren. You know, they drug him out. And so you would think like if this was like some big deal that they would just go and grab Kvothe and like, hey, we got to bring you to Lorren. You're not supposed to be doing this. And that they would have taken care of it. Like Sim said, the Scribs would have taken care of it, and it seems you would think that they would be able to handle telling Kvothe he's got to fucking dip out for 5 days, or he's got to go see Lorren. For Lorren to need to go in there and collect that book from him, it just it gives it that layer of suspicion. And when you add on the other reasons we have to suspect that Lorren is Amyr, this is just adding another brick to that pile.
Yeah, especially again picking up from their whole initial run-in, or what you talked about earlier, that whole discussion where he's basically squashing him, looking into, because he's seeing all the things that he's looking for. Although it also it sort of brings up the question of, how does he know he has the book? Is there something going on there? Like, he's like just in tune with like what's being perused, like, I don't know. Again, it could just be happenstance, but
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be that there's a scrib there that knows what's going on, that heard him say that saying and then went and grabbed the master. But I don't know. I don't know why he showed up there. It's not certain that he showed up because he wanted to get that book from Kvothe. It's just that possibility is there, and with the other reasons to think that he might be Amyr, it just kind of adds up. But I like the aspect too that when he shows the book to Sim, like, Sim freaks the hell out.
Yeah.
He's he's like, get that thing away
out
from me. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, an original. Yeah. Merciful Telu is probably written on human skin. Get it away from me.